Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. This week we're going a little bit different, and we're going to be, from a therapeutic perspective, responding to Am I the A-hole threads on Reddit. Reddit is sometimes a guilty pleasure for me. A lot of the information down there is less than scientific, but also I really enjoy watching the way that people interact with each other on that app. So if you're not already on there and you're looking for some entertainment, that might be a place to get it. Also, an interesting look into the psyche of people and why we ask the questions that we ask and who answers the questions that they answer. Before we jump in, I want to remind you that if you have not already subscribed to the channel, we'd really appreciate it just to help us to continue to grow and help the algorithm to see the value in what we're doing here. Letter number 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my son's college tuition because he decided to come out early? Okay, this is written by a woman in her 40s about her son who is 19. My son came out to my husband and I when he was 14 years old. My husband and I are both atheists and support the LGBTQIA+ community, and we are both proud of our son for coming out. However, my husband's mother is a devout Catholic and an extremely intolerant person of gay people. She is wealthy, and my children were told from a young age that their college would be paid for as long as they attended a private Catholic or Christian school. She believes this will stop them from partying and having premarital sex. I don't agree with this, and I've argued that my children getting the top education possible should be the priority, regardless of the school's religious affiliation, but she refuses to change her mind. My son chose a Christian college one state over to attend. He graduated with a lot of college credits from taking many AP classes in high school and will be done in 3 years as opposed to 4. He's currently just begun year 2, which has already been paid for. During Labor Day weekend, he came home to celebrate his grandmother's birthday. He told one of his cousins that he was talking to a boy at his college. He thought his cousin was a safe person to talk to. Turns out the cousin told his parents, and his parents told their mother, which is the boy's homophobic grandmother. She was livid, and she called me and informed me that she would not be making any future payments towards his tuition and told me to relay the message to him as she will no longer be speaking to him. I had told him many times not to come out to his grandma, cousins, aunt, or uncle until he was through with college. I hate that he can't be himself, but my husband and I cannot afford his college. I don't like my mother-in-law and will be going no contact once my other 2 children, 13 and 15, get their chance to have their tuition paid for as well. My son is okay with me waiting to do so for the sake of his siblings. He will unfortunately have to take out student loans to eat the cost of his final year. My son is obviously devastated. He will both not have his final year of college paid for and that his cousin is not someone he can trust. He now wants me and my husband to foot the bill for next year. We have $25,000 saved up currently that we plan to use for a much-needed kitchen renovation.
Our oven barely works, our dishwasher doesn't work at all, and the kitchen itself is worn down and outdated. My son's calling me an a-hole for prioritizing our remodel over his education. We've explained to him that our kitchen is falling apart and it's much needed,
and is nowhere near the cost of his tuition. Even if we postponed it, we would still be short as his private school is very expensive. I feel like he is an adult and he needs to be the one to deal with the consequences, not us. Am I the a-hole for not using our family savings on his remaining tuition? I think it's important to understand there's a difference between being an a-hole and being the a-hole. That's an important distinction for me in this letter. There's a couple of things that I'm understanding specifically that are happening. Number 1, grandma's homophobic. Number 2, son knew grandma was homophobic. Number 3, mom asked son to hide himself and his relationships until, all of the kids can get out of college so that grandma pays for college. Number 4, there seems to be a discrepancy between how the son actually feels about the grandma pulling her support. In one paragraph, she says he understands. In another paragraph, she says he's calling them a-holes for not taking care of it for him. Also, I want to remember that her son's 19. We're going to start with the last paragraph first. One of the last things that this mom says in her letter is,
it does not touch your very expensive private school tuition.
Well, he went to that very expensive private school because grandma said she would pay for it, and you convinced him that it was totally fine to hide himself from grandma because then you could use her for her money. He's 19. He was 14 when he told you who he was. So for at least 5 years, you have convinced him that it is okay to manipulate someone for their money. And now you're surprised that he wants money. Right? There is some level of understanding that needs to be there for her son. He chose to let someone into his life and to not have to be so guarded at family functions and with his family in general, because you and your husband have basically told him that if he says who he is, everyone's life will be ruined. Not just his, but his siblings too, it sounds like. So he has decided to make a decision for himself and let someone in to the happiness that he feels about this relationship he has. Did he trust the wrong person? Apparently. That is a really, really intense lesson for someone to learn. No one came to him. Grandma won't even talk to him. So if he's lashing out about you not putting the kitchen renovation on hold and helping him out, what he's actually saying to you is that he is hurt and he needs you to step in. Because guess what, Mom? You haven't stepped in so far. Your entire policy here has been,
well, we're atheists, so we love gay people.
But also,
be quiet and make the Christian pay for this thing.
And also, well, you opened your mouth, so it's your problem now. Where in there is your support? Not for gay people, but for your son. As a therapist, if this woman were with me, I would have a maybe slightly more sugar-coated, but still pretty stern conversation saying these things. If son was in the room with me railing about mom, I would not be convincing son that mom wasn't the a-hole. Ultimately, though, the real a-hole in this entire thing is grandma, because what is wrong with you? What kind of a God do you worship that says if you keep everybody under lock and key so they do exactly what you think that God wants them to do, then you're doing your part. But at no point, at no level are you loving your family authentically. Lots of a-holes in this story. Mom's one of them. You plan to go no contact with her after your next 3 kids have finished college. One of them is 13. That's another 9 or so years that you're going to be fine and pretend to be fine with this woman and then all of a sudden shut it down. So you've essentially taught all of your kids, it's fine to change your morals. It's fine to change your understanding of who you are and who other people are and the value of that as long as you're getting something out of it. Okay, next one. Definitely a theme here. Also written by a mom about her son and her husband. The question is, am I the a-hole for telling my husband he didn't raise our gay son? I've never understood the gay community. And to be honest, I haven't really cared much about it. I found it distasteful and sinful. But since my son has come out to me as a gay when he was a teenager, I've tried to understand it more. We talked about how he felt when he started feeling it, if he's interested in anyone specifically, and assured him that this changes nothing between us. Okay, let's stop there. We're just going to stop there. We'll get to the rest of the story in a second. You just called your son a gay, and you think it's distasteful and sinful that the gay community exists. Parents, when your child comes to you and tells you the truth of who they are, your job as a parent is to say, thank you for telling me. That's the first thing you say. And then if you have questions or misunderstandings or maybe general conceptions that you're not sure if they're accurate or not, go educate yourself. Do not expect your kid to educate you. That's not their job. As the parent, if your child is telling you something about themselves, you go educate yourself about it so that you can be the best parent possible. It is about time that we stop giving parents major props for doing the bare minimum of parenting, which is accepting your child as they present themselves to you. That's the bare minimum, parents. And when we have people who have these stories where they tell their parents who they are and they're like, okay, great, thanks for telling me, we're cheering for these parents. Are you kidding me? That's parenting. That's basic parenting, right? Moving on. My husband has always been absent in his life, I assume the son's life, due to his job, and he was with us on hangouts and weekends and still cared for him, but missed all of the important times. However, when faced with this important time, he has become much more aggressive. He told him that it's just hormones and he'll get over it, and that he doesn't want a queer in his house, so to get that nonsense out of his head. My son cried a lot, and I'm trying to talk to my husband about it, but he either walks away and ignores me or blows everything up into an argument. So there is no winning. My son moved out as soon as he could, and while it hurt, I understood him and that it wasn't a good environment. Fast forward to now, son and I are still in contact. And he told me recently that he has a boyfriend, invited me to meet him. I said yes. We settled on a small cafe that they like. I was preparing what to wear and my husband wouldn't stop asking what it's for. It was a really nice dress, so I don't really blame him for getting suspicious. And I told him I'm meeting up with our son. Okay, stopping there again. You don't have to clear where you're going with your spouse. And if you do, there's a problem. If I want to go somewhere, I tell my wife, hey, I'm going here. She can ask me as many questions as she wants to. I don't have to answer them because we're individual people. Also, she really wouldn't ask a ton of questions. Also, I probably wouldn't go without her anyway. That's a whole other story. There's so many red flags in this. He won't engage in a conversation with his wife about their child. The child moved out of the house as soon as possible, and mom is heartbroken about it, but still talks to both of them. And this situation presents itself so often for people where you've got one parent who's sort of playing both sides and trying to appease. When you do that, you are still doing harm to your child. It is potentially less harmful to the child to say, I am choosing my marriage and staying in my marriage over our relationship than it would be to be okay with them when you're with them, and then with this homophobic other person who is also your spouse and also their parent. Which of those do you believe? Because I'm sorry, but in general, trying to straddle that fence is only going to lead to pain to everyone, because you will not make everyone happy. You will not make yourself happy, and it will lead to harm for everyone. It was a really nice dress, so I don't blame him for getting suspicious, and I told him I'm going to meet our son. He made a comment about how proud I am of calling a queer our son, and that I should be ashamed that we raised a bad word. I learned from my son that's not a good word to use on gay people, and I snapped. I yelled at him that he never raised a blank, and that I was the one who was always there for him. I was the one at his graduation parties, at his school award ceremonies, parent-teacher conferences, etc., etc., etc. He argued back that it was not fair because he was busy working to accommodate our lifestyle and barely living himself. The argument got more and more flamed, and I decided just to wear something simple and go early to the cafe. Okay, again, difference between the and an. The a-hole in the situation is dad, clearly, because he's not making any effort, any attempt at all to reconcile relationships with people he supposedly cares about. If you're working that hard for that many years for a family, one would assume you love them. If you do not love them, well, it's not even optional. Love your family. Like, why is that hard? Calling your child a name and dismissing them from your life. There's so many levels of inappropriate here. There's so many levels of harm that happen when a parent who is like biologically mandated to care for their young decides that one aspect of who this person is enough to remove all support and all love. Yeah, that's a problem. And you're staying with him. That's also a problem. The language that you've used in this letter is also problematic. You don't have a real understanding of your son's life or what he goes through regularly. You're fighting with your husband about a dress that you're wearing, but not about the real issue. You're standing up for yourself, vindicating yourself and all the effort you've put in with your child, which is great. I love that for you. Where is that same energy for your child? I find it interesting when parents phone this stuff in because I wonder who it's for then. Is it so you feel good about your child? Is it so you feel good about yourself? Is it so your child feels supported and loved? Is it so you don't feel guilty? What's your motivation here? Who are you doing any of this for? It's not for your child. It's not for your husband, and it's certainly not for you. You're the one tearing yourself apart. Again, if this person were a client of mine, I would be doing some digging into their family life, into who raised them, who are their siblings, what the relationship with them was like, what the relationship between the people that raised them was like. There's something here for her that is stopping her from taking a side, taking a stand, and it's hurting everybody. Our last letter, am I the a-hole for stealing my brother's spotlight and telling a girl I was gay? I, 20-year-old straight male, have a younger brother, 18-year-old male. We were pretty close, and a few years ago, he told me that he's gay. He hasn't told our parents because we were unsure of how they would react. There's a girl who lives on the street from us, and she has a thing for me, has had for several years. I didn't mind it at first, but when she finished school, she began giving me more and more attention. She's giggly and loud and flirty, and I'm just not interested. She has a vegetable garden, often comes to our house with whatever she has grown that week, and she somehow always seems to come around when I'm home alone. We have a pool in our backyard, and she often comes to use that as well. I've not responded to any of her flirting, but she also hasn't made any real moves, so I never rejected her properly until this week. I got fed up and told her to back off and leave me alone, and she wouldn't really. Just kept saying that I needed to give her a chance and take her out, that I needed to see her in her new bikini. I snapped, told her I'm gay, and told her to back off. That seemed to work, but a couple of days later when my parents and my brother and I were all in the kitchen together, my mom says we need to have a conversation. She tells me that Lisa's the girl, told her that I was gay and that she and my dad fully support that. They both said they were proud of me and gave me hugs, and I tried to say that I wasn't gay, but they wouldn't listen to me. Meanwhile, my brother got really upset and went to his room. When I went to check on him an hour or so later, he cried and yelled about how he should have been the one to have that chat with our parents, that I had ruined his coming out. Am I the a-hole? That's a complicated one. There's a lot of levels here. First of all, if you don't want to date somebody, you don't date them. If you don't want them around, you say,
don't come around anymore. I don't want you here.
It really is actually that simple, because I'm inclined to assume when people tell me stories like this, that while they say, I was very clear about it, they weren't actually clear. They were like, well, I don't know. I don't really think I want. They think that that means no to somebody. But in reality, it doesn't mean no. It means, oh, I'm not sure. If you're very clear with somebody, they need to back off. They should back off. And if it's somebody, a 19-year-old who's living with their parents, get the parents involved. Go tell the parents, say, hey, listen,
She keeps coming on to me. This is what's happening.
I'm uncomfortable.
can you tell her to stop? Telling someone that you're gay to get out of having to be honest with them is an a-hole thing to do. It's not okay. You don't steal someone's identity in order to avoid having to be confrontational. The next problem is that the brother had to sit there and watch that acceptance and that love be showered on the wrong brother. And at this point, no matter when he comes out, no matter how he tells them, it's never going to be what it could have been. And when someone is not sure about telling their parents who they are, especially when they've told other people in the household, there are two realities that exist in their mind. One is this idea that it could be great and amazing, like a movie where everybody loves each other. And well, I don't actually know what movie that happens in, but I'd like to see more of those movies out there. Everybody loves each other and they're so excited to know more about this child of theirs. Or there's the other reality where they just completely cut off the kid because they can't accept this part of him. Those realities exist constantly in his head and will until he tells them. You telling her weaponized your brother's identity. You use it as a weapon against her. And it's not your brother, and I get that, but you used it as a weapon against someone else. That makes your brother feel used, and that makes your brother feel less than. It makes your brother feel not seen. It makes your brother scared that other people are going to use him in the same way because he trusted you. None of that was okay. I'm glad that you attempted to tell your parents it wasn't true, but honestly, at this point, your reputation for being honest and forthright in conversation with people, little sketchy probably, because if you could have just done that in the first place with Lisa, none of that would have happened. If you were asking my advice, I would say you need to go to the brother and say, I am sorry I took this from you. What can I do now? How can I support you now? What do you need from me now? I will go directly to mom and dad, say whatever you need me to say. I will back off. I will do whatever you need. I want this to be the best experience it can be for you moving forward. That's what you do. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.